Capitol Hill bracing for an impeachment battle in the Senate, while Democrats facing growing criticism for how they've handled the process up to now. Earlier today, impeachment articles were presented and read aloud by the Democratic managers, and Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts swore in senators as jurors. Now, those are all formalities. Then there is the little partisan battle. Nancy Pelosi and her impeachment managers being blasted by Republicans for handing out souvenir impeachment pens during what was supposed to be a somber ceremony yesterday. And Adam Schiff is under fire for dumping documents from Rudy Giuliani associate Lev Parnas after the House wrapped its investigation. So GOP senators, they're pushing back.
They've given us two very weak articles of impeachment. Our job is to look at what they brought us and decide if that rises to the level of impeachment.
The same witnesses they're saying they need today were available in the House. You know, if you want a witness and the witness was available to you and you chose not to call them, don't blame me.
If they wanted to call these witnesses, they could have called them. It is not our job to expand the impeachment.
And the president reacting to it all.
I think it should go very quickly. It's a hoax. It's a hoax. Everybody knows that. It's a complete hoax. And he's a corrupt politician named Adam Schiff. And he made up a phone call. He went out, you'll hear about this as you grow older. He went out and he said things that he said quid pro quo 8 times. It was no times.
And there was, of course, media reaction. I want to play the soundbite from Joe Scarborough. He was talking about what the defenders of Trump will be treated like in the future. If we could play that, please.
We know that all of these characters, Rudy Giuliani, will be exposed for what he is. The history, it will be bleak. And their families, their children, their grandchildren, everyone who has their last name will carry that around with them.
Greg, I thought I'd come to you.
I think that's really brave of him to indict his own family and his own offspring. Don't you think that was brave of him? Because wasn't he a key player in electing Trump? Wasn't he one that kissed his ass in the start of this whole thing and pleaded to have him on? We need to put his kids and his family on trial. Anyway, I'm kidding. His kids shouldn't go to jail or anything. They should be forced to watch Morning Joe every single day as punishment. Look, we know the ending to this story. Yet we have to cover this nonstop. The constant scenes of people walking as if this is an achievement that they can walk into an open space without collapsing. So that's a big deal. But one thing I noticed is that these people aren't working, right? And we're fine. Which means that all of these politicians that are walking around creating this phony pomp and circumstance are totally unnecessary to the smooth running of a country. All you really need is Trump. Trump's on his own, getting his stuff done. You have all these other idiots wandering around, trying to look serious, and the more serious they look, the more comical they become. The beauty of this is they're going to lose, right? But we're going to let them go through this and let them work it all out. But these clowns like Nadler and Schiff, they aren't in control. So when they start talking about witnesses, no witnesses. They want you to believe that the TV witnesses, the people that are on Maddow, are actually hearing witnesses. No, those are TV witnesses. Those are for the ratings to get the people to watch the shows. But they're not real witnesses, so they won't be there.
I was thinking about this, the whole walking thing, and there's a lot of ceremony around the walking. I mean, part of the reason there's walking is that the founding fathers set up the system, right? But if the founding fathers had email, I don't think they would have walked it.
No, they didn't. But I recall, and Juan didn't believe me, that I was old enough to remember in the 90s when the Republicans impeached Clinton, they just did it on a Saturday. They had some runner run it over to the Secretary of the Senate on a Saturday. It wasn't carried live. No one just slow-mode the walking. And they didn't also treat it the way Nancy treated it. She says she's sad and somber, and she's wisecracking, smiling, and handing out souvenirs. She's so see-through. Abuse of power. It's not like the president spied on an opposing presidential campaign. Obstruction. It's not like he bleach-bitted 30,000 emails under subpoena. I mean, what do you have? Nancy says she cares so much about national security. When in her career has she been tough on the Russians, the Chinese, the terrorists? She wants the border to be like a sieve. This is about protecting the Constitution. Really, Nancy? The First Amendment? Is it the Second Amendment? Due process? Speedy trial? Which one is it, Nancy?
The Fifth Amendment.
Right. Election integrity? Really? Okay, then pass voter ID laws. Or is she just trying to pay back Trump for zeroing in on the Biden family shenanigans? That's what this is all about. I mean, Hillary paid for foreign interference in the election to the tune of $9 million for a fake dossier. And then the GAO comes out and says, tis, tis, Trump broke a rule by delaying aid. GAO said Obama broke a rule with the Bergdahl trade, said George W. Bush broke a rule. Maybe Joe Biden broke a rule when he delayed the aid unless Ukraine fired the prosecutor who was investigating his son. It happens in every administration. It's no big deal. Trump was just kicking the tires on an administration that was new and rife with corruption. And he got the money out under the wire. And the Ukrainians didn't even have to do anything. Lastly, this guy, Lev Parnas, whatever his name is, this guy's like the Michael Avenatti. You know, at the last second, they're throwing out gang rape claims. All of a sudden, you're supposed to take this guy seriously. He says he's never even spoken to Donald Trump. He just paid Rudy Giuliani to make money off of his name. He said Devin Nunes went to Vienna and met with the prosecutor about Joe Biden. Nunes never been to Vienna. And now CNN's getting sued for reporting that Lev lied. Lev said he was speaking to the Ukrainian foreign minister about all this. The Ukrainian foreign minister went on CNN yesterday and said, I've never met the guy. Don't trust a word he says.
Don't forget that the business was called Fraud Guarantee.
Yeah, it's a hell of a name.
They want to play a soundbite. Is this the one about Lev Parnas? Let's play that.
I don't want to make any judgments about his credibility or others until we have the opportunity to flesh that out.
There seems to be documentation that would validate what Parnas is saying, but that all has to be subjected to scrutiny.
Juan, what about this evidence coming out after the House has already closed down its shop and sent the articles over? Do you think that this should be allowed into the Senate trial?
I do. I think that you've got to consider... because one of the articles of impeachment literally is obstruction. And what you had was people being told they can't testify, John Bolton being the prime example, Dana, who have direct firsthand knowledge of what took place. And so if we're all curious, if we all want to know exactly what happened, and the president says it was a perfect call, why not let people with firsthand knowledge come and say something? Now, Lev Parnas has firsthand knowledge that the president lied, that he'd had direct knowledge that, in fact, there was a quid pro quo, or what Gordon Sunderland, the ambassador, said was a clear effort to use U.S. money as leverage against the Ukraine, money that had been approved by Congress to get dirt on Joe Biden. So, you know, it doesn't seem as if there's much doubt about the specific crime. There's simply people who say, well, so it's not worthy of impeachment. But I also want to take this opportunity, because I don't often do this, to pay tribute to Greg Gutfeld. Because who would guess that Mitch McConnell would be following, by the way, marching, like, you know how they march? He's marching behind Greg on this pen thing, because the grievance industry on the Republican side is now,
I got a soundbite on the pens. I got a soundbite on the pens, and I want to get Dagan in on that, and she can talk about the pens or anything else she wants. Can we play this Republican outrage about the pens?
It depends. The Speaker distributed souvenir pens to her own colleagues, emblazoned with her golden signature.
Democrats did what you would expect in a campaign event. Posed for pictures, smiled, handed out gifts to one another. I'm sure most of you got a pin as well.
We thought that she may have some grand strategy for delaying the impeachment trial for 28 days. Maybe she was just waiting for her special order pins to come in.
Pens.
And dressed in the color of an Easter egg. Wasn't that pretty? I'm just here to listen to Greg do his Yosemite Sam again. I'm not even getting paid for this. I'm paying for this seat today.
You mean yesterday when the two of these started screaming?
No, it was the...
We reflected our audience. Hey, look, you brought it up. Our audience has to sit through this garbage for hours. Yeah. They come to the 5 to hear the truth, and that this is a farce.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead. Our audience comes to hear the truth. I'm glad you said that, because I think they want to hear what's going on, not just the grievance rage that comes from the right to distract people,
or the lies
from the fact that there's a
if you want to dance to the jukebox of the Democrats, that's fine, but I'm not going to do it.
I hope you're not dancing to the jukebox either.
I go from DEFCON 5 to DEFCON 1, peacetime to global thermonuclear war in a sneeze. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to address one thing that you said, the fact that all this information's coming out, the government accountability report. Oh, here's Lev Parnas with that hideous hairdo with some new dirt on President Trump and what Rudy Giuliani was doing. It is proof that Pelosi and co rushed and botched this impeachment, blinded by their own rage at Trump getting elected, and clouded their judgment, clouded their faculties, impaired by their hatred of him and all the gun-toting, Bible-carrying deplorables out there who voted for him. They've released this. They don't control the investigation anymore. It's in the hands of the Senate. And to your point, you know, they're not doing anything, and look how great the country's running. Look at the stock market.
You don't want the country to do anything.
You know what? Their ineptitude is proof that the Trump doctrine on the economy works. Get out of the way. Let the animal spirits alive.
So he's just going to be a king. We just want a king. So in other words, even the GAO says the man committed a crime, and you're saying, oh, so what?
He did commit a crime.